time to save big at Room to Room's New Year's sale. Store-wide markdowns 50 to 70% off. No tax. 48-month special financing. It's a new year at Room to Room Furniture in Tupelo. There's no place like home.
Mississippi's trusted weather experts. This is Mississippi Live Weather at 10.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. Thank you so much for joining us for Mississippi Live Weather at 10. Got a lot of things we're juggling tonight. It's our game of the week. We are looking at an ice storm. And unfortunately, one of the things that we're juggling is the potential that we could have thunder something that's associated with this. Is it thunder rain? Is it thunder sleet? Is it thunder ice? Unfortunately, it might be all three for different locations or maybe even the same locations. We're timing that out. We're talking about it in a few minutes. First 12, let's just be crystal clear. You're going to school tomorrow. You're coming home from school tomorrow. There's no weather disruptions. It's honestly one of the nicer days we've had this week. I mean, still on the colder end of the spectrum, but 39 is a lot more mild at, say, 5 a.m. than we were at other points recently. We're going 38, though, by 8 a.m., 42 as we look toward 11 a.m., and mostly dry conditions despite those northeasterly winds. One of the things we talked about all week long in the Room to Room Weather Center, Friday, a day of transition, and by late in the day, much colder weather moves in. Ice storm warnings have been expanded for more locations, and you might be one of those. We'll show you county by county that here in a couple of moments. Thunderstorms are possible, but what will fall is the big question, and in some cases, it could be rain that freezes as it comes in contact with the surface. We'll look more details at that coming up here in a couple minutes, and our game of the week is here. We'll have all of the highlights coming from Calhoun County with our Ethan Foster and our Gabe Maynard here in a couple minutes. But I want to start you off with rainfall totals. And listen, not all of this will be rainfall, but I want to show you this because this is the liquid equivalent of whatever happens largely from this storm over top of our area. And so why is this important? This is if you melt it all down. And this is why the positioning of that freezing line is so critical, because if we mess it up, something here that shows up, on the east here, okay, maybe Columbus is all rainfall. Not so sure about Amory. Certainly not so sure about Tupelo. That could be a lot of major ice if everything goes the wrong distance on this. And we're hoping that's not the case. And that's what we'll be looking at in this broadcast. So this is what is at stake when we look at this forecast, is how much of this ends up being potentially debilitating ice. Certainly in the chat, that's what most folks are asking about. Gabe, go ahead and click on there so I can click open the chat, click into VMix so that pops up here for a moment. There we go. A lot of folks, everybody's kind of watching and talking about it. That's one of the things we'll be discussing in more detail here in a moment. So what to expect? We have left the positioning on this graphic exactly the same as when myself and our meteorologist Maggie McCauley put it out this morning and went together. I still think your peak impacts are going to be in this orange area here. And while we have seen projections that have more warm air closer to the Golden Triangle, Starkville, and possibly West Point, I don't yet buy it. And the reason why is because of that last graphic. The amount of precipitation is so significant. I'm going to go back a graphic to show you that again here for a moment. I'm going to kind of hold a location on this. Look at this Saturday, not much, but this big burst you see early Sunday morning there, that is the thunderstorms that come in, and probably not severe thunderstorms, but the fact they're storms at all, thunderstorms rain heavier, more quickly, and if it's cold enough and ice enough, that is major issues. So that's what I want to point out here. See Amory, Columbus, Starkville, right up to Tupelo. We're on at least this projection, we have some of the heaviest rainfall. As we look at the peak threats, that's why I say it's right along this corridor on the east edge of where we see peak threats, where we have lower confidence that what it is ice, and higher confidence that more of that will be rainfall. But if we're wrong at all, the other end impact is extremely significant. This is why we have those ice storm warnings that are in effect, expanded now Montgomery County, locations Carroll County, Webster County, back toward the south and west, closer to the Jackson area. This is where we expect to see the most significant icing. And while we do have winter storm warnings up to the north and west here, we're more likely to have complete refreezing into sleet for locations in that direction, maybe even eventually some snowfall up there into Arkansas, but even they are going to have more icing than anything else. For us, though, on the whole nation, the most likely spot to have what could be significant icing, unfortunately, this means travel disruptions are likely on your Saturday for some, on Sunday for even more, and possibly even into Monday and maybe even Tuesday of next week because of how cold we get. This all starts Friday evening. So again, join our conversation as you see over here. We appreciate everybody. Again, concerns related to travel, power, all those sorts of things. Mama Justice Doppler radar, again, showing up clear and dry at this point, watching that front down to the south of us with this main storm system still back well to the west. And so we largely stay dry as we head into the next 12 hours, really better part of the next 24 hours. Only lighter variety moisture out there. You could start to see the first signs of that winter changeover back out there for locations onto the plains. That's, again, a lot colder, higher confidence that they see all of the wintry stuff there. That is more snowfall out that direction. But then we have these showers. And these showers are mostly going to be snowfall aloft that is melting the rainfall. Once it gets into our area, is enough that cold air in place? That's the question. Through midday tomorrow, still solidly back to the west. So over the next 24 hours, again, tomorrow morning, upper 30s. We're going to be 39 degrees at 9 a.m. Yes, you are going to school in Burnsville and all the other places there, Winston counties that were mentioned. Everybody's going to school, but you can see we're over 10 degrees above freezing in the afternoon. We're all making it back from school as well in good shape. But tomorrow evening, we drop below freezing. And then overnight, that is when we have, of course, this big wave move into the area. Coming up here in 60 seconds in the Room to Room Weather Center, we're going to be breaking down, again, the peak threats. We're going to look at where the peak icing is, and we're going to talk numbers. We've been putting off talking numbers because of a number of reasons. And one of those is I've been waiting to see what happened with this, with whether or not we had some convective activity, another way to say thunderstorms. That remains a possibility. That's where our concerns come in. Again, join the conversation. We will eventually get to some questions here, and we'll have more in 60 seconds here as Mississippi Live Weather continues from the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
As a bankruptcy firm, Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling realizes many people are worried about their finances. We're here to guide you through the next steps to restart your life with easy video appointments. New clients don't have to leave home to get information about becoming debt-free. Also, convenient in-office appointments are available at the low cost of $340 upfront for a Chapter 13. You can be on your way to being debt-free. Contact Mitchell, Cunningham & Bowling today or visit our website at mcdebtfree.com. We are here to help you. Right now, from the Room to Room Weather Center, here's Mississippi's Chief Meteorologist, Matt Lovhawn.
You're watching us here on Mississippi Live Weather at 10 p.m. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lovhawn, joined behind the scenes by our meteorologist Gabe Maynard. We'll talk to Gabe. We'll get to all your Game of the Week stuff that we typically would show on a game night here in a few minutes. But Kosciuszko, we're looking out of a camera here provided by the North Mississippi Storm Chasers. Our partnership with them is going to be huge in this impending ice storm. And I think we can say that for some of us, that's what this will be. Hopefully there's more sleet than freezing rain, but certainly both are a possibility out of this, unfortunately. And the fact we could have thunderstorms producing all of that could cause some real issues there. Again, looking outside in Kosciuszko, one of those locations right on the line where we could have some of the coldest impacts there. We're going to be using that camera as well as our camera here in the Tupelo area, provided again by those folks at Mitchell Cunningham Bowling. 45 in Tupelo now, everybody above freezing. And we'll be watching these cameras obviously extremely closely. But cold, dense air is notorious for doing what it wants and being poorly recognized by our projections. And look how much there is here. These are actual temperatures up here into Canada, well, not even Canada, northern Minnesota, -23 actual temperature. And if I put a loop on this here, we'll make it a 12-hour loop, you can see how much that has progressed over really the last 12 hours or so. It is still wobbling southward, but unfortunately it is coming. And as this slides down, this is the X, Y, and Z factor on how this works. Because if it is cold enough, and it very well could be cold enough, that's what changes everything over in the frozen everything that we don't want to think about and hopefully don't have to think about. So weekend threats, we have updated this since our 5 and 6 o'clock broadcasts. The biggest change is this middle one here, right? About rainfall. Well, why does rain matter? Well, I am encompassing this and saying some thunderstorms possible. And thunderstorms plus cold temperatures, this isn't just cold rain. That could be thunderstorm level rainfall accumulations. You know how it comes a comes a flood, comes a big downpour. If it's below freezing when that happens, that's when we have significant icing that's very disruptive. And early Sunday morning, the concerns are increasing for the potential for that. Now, I want to be clear, we do not know for sure. And in a shorter format broadcast, like what I had at the TV station, I don't know how deep we'd go into this, but we have more time so we can discuss more things. So hopefully you'll understand both the pitfalls of the forecasting this far out and also the preparation to go with it. But this is the biggest change from our 5 o'clock broadcast. We saw it at noontime, that convective activity, and it looks more likely on some of the latest information here. Travel impacts likely. Accumulating sleet and ice is possible out of this. We're just hoping it hinges more towards sleet than ice, because if that is thunder sleet, that's more manageable. If that's thunder ice, and by that rainfall, freezing rain that freezes when it comes in contact with the surface, then we've got bigger issues here. I'm going to change this back over here to our virtual weather set here for a moment. I think it's easier for me to kind of talk about this on that for a moment. So here's precip type. And in particular, this is looking at our freezing rain. And in order for us to get freezing rain, you have to have a sufficient warm layer here that snow falls into, fully melts, and then a cold layer near the ground. So it's not just a cold rainfall, it's rain that turns into ice when it makes contact with something. That is our biggest concern, and the depth of that low-level cold layer, something that we will be looking much more at as we look toward tomorrow. Now, if it's just rainfall, it's not cold enough at the surface. And these are the two things we're most likely to see. The freezing rain, and in many cases, the rainfall, where this is all starting off as snowfall. And that's actually not true, because if we end up with a convective situation here, it would actually be starting off with raindrops aloft. So I'm hoping that's not the case, but with overrunning of warm air, that does happen from time to time, and that could be the case with this setup. Now, if this were sleet, we would have a more significant cold layer near the surface, and I don't necessarily think that's going to be the case. But what would happen is you still have your snowflakes, melts completely, and then it fully refreezes. That's why there's a little bounce. If it's bouncing when it hits the surface, that's probably sleet that we're dealing with. And then this is the thing that everyone wants and no one's going to get, snow. Because there's warm air aloft, that what we call, snow eater, that we talked a lot about earlier this week. Now that we're sure that that's the case, we're not showing that as much, but that warm air aloft eats into some of the snowfall totals. But again, for your Friday, you are going to school, and everything as far as that's concerned is going to be fairly normal there. IMPC, again, sponsoring our school day forecast, and 37 that drop-off temperature, 42 by lunch, 44 by the latter part of the day. In a lot of ways, a fairly normal day. Will be a little bit breezy, but a fairly normal day. Again, join the conversation next to me here. We'll try to address some of that as we go through this discussion. I see Thunder Ice Mageddon. Listen, we don't know for sure that this will be thunder ice. It could be just thunder rainfall. That is the hope. That is clearly the prayer. But that is something that we have to prep for either way. So Friday evening, Friday night, tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, this is all rainfall. And then we start to get a mix here, 1 o'clock in the morning. Clarksdale, Shelby, back toward Cleveland. This is probably a mix of some snowflakes and sleet pellets primarily, and then some melting to rainfall. We're above freezing at the surface for most locations leading into early Saturday morning, especially for the eastern portion of the area. But farther north and west, that sneaky cold air is coming in. And so we're trying to cool the atmosphere. Something we would sometimes call dynamic cooling. Basically, what's happening, the reason there's some holes here is we have moisture that's falling, but it's falling into relatively drier air. And that could then force the temperature down a little bit more than some of our models show. So that's, again, there's so many different factors in a winter system that make it tricky. So as we look here early Saturday morning, we're in the low 30s and in some cases upper 20s for a lot of spots. But then we have this persistent warmer area back to the south and east here. You could almost, again, just kind of see that snow-eating warm layer, even at the surface here, just some of those warmer temperatures like that that are kind of working their way northward. That's going to be the challenge. How far north does that warm air work? As you can see, temperatures do increase a little bit. If it stays dry, and if we don't have any moisture trying to fall into that, there will be opportunity to boost those temperatures up some. And so, honestly, the hope is that just boosts it way up and that this is underestimated. But again, I would say that's more a hope than a confident forecast at this point here. Watch temperature in Tupelo, Houston, 33, 34. I could say at that point in time, whatever precipitation is falling out here, Senatobia, back Holly Springs, Water Valley, most locations that are under that ice storm warning. The reason, and I need to do a better job of mentioning you in New Albany or Boonville or Corinth, the reason I'm not spending as much time talking about you is because I feel fairly confident you're cold enough that whatever falling is going to be frozen. And that's where the accumulations continue to really add up for you. For me, the challenge in explaining it is for locations here closer to the Natchez Trace Parkway, such as Iuka or say Red Bay, where it shows 40. I don't think it's going to be 40 at noon. I think that's overdone. I think that's too warm probably. But there's going to be a corridor there, say Red Bay, possibly Houston, Bruce, back to Eupora here, where we're going to be pretty much right at the freezing point. And within a county, you could have a 10-degree temperature swing where one side of the county is seeing frozen something and other parts of the county are seeing just rainfall at that point. And so does the cold air slip farther in? This is colder than what we showed you at 5 and 6 o'clock. So even our strike model here, as well as our HRRR model, they are showing up a little bit colder. And that is, again, that tricky cold air trying to slosh back in. And that's where the icing potential, again, something we'll watch. But what I need to say about your icing potential on Saturday is it's more standard fare, as if there's anything standard about a winter system. And by that, I mean, it's just kind of rainfall or it's snowfall aloft that's melting into rain and either freezing in the freezing rain or staying sleet close to the surface. Because, I mean, you could see there's plenty of warm air trying to charge up with this system. And you're mid-50s there, Aliceville, in this projection versus low 30s up here in Tupelo and Houston. So the takeaway on this is while icing is possible Saturday and it will probably cause travel disruptions, any thunder something comes early Sunday morning. And so if you make it through Saturday and you're just in the rainfall, count your blessings. But we're not through this until we're through Sunday. I'm going to take this full screen as we go through this explanation here over the next couple of moments. So as we go into Saturday, I change models. You see how the positioning changes a little bit, but notice how the precipitation type almost completely changes when we come over to our strike model here. So I do not think it's handling the precipitation type particularly well. But the temperatures, they have come down. And so I do think that the precipitation type will catch up to tomorrow. That's one of the things we're working to try to analyze and get a good idea. But right at the point here, we're looking at 6 p.m. That freezing line, in my opinion, is probably going to be somewhere Red Bay to Amory, maybe to Starkville, to Kosciuszko. And then everything back here is frozen. So I'll put a big F back here. And everything ahead is not. So as we go into the evening, colder air starts to win, and then red starts to show up. And this is where the concerns come in. Let's widen this. I can rerun this to show it closer in a second, but I want you to see the progression. I want you to watch down here toward Louisiana, back toward Jackson. We'll get to what's up here. I'll show it again, but please give me your eyes down here for a moment. So notice how these showers, they kind of have this consistent stream to them. That lines up like a pretty consistent fetch of moisture right off of the Gulf of Mexico. And notice how we have more reds up here starting to show up in our area. Again, we'll come in, we'll look at this in a minute. But as we go into Sunday morning there, 6 o'clock in the morning, notice how there's a lot more red down here in Louisiana, even some yellow speckled in. These are thunderstorms down that direction. How deep into our area do those thunderstorms extend? Because this is a line of thunderstorms depicted here, but it's partially coating in frozen. And it's partially because this doesn't happen that often. But that's where the concerns for thunder something else comes in. Is it thunder rain? Is it thunder sleet? Or is it thunder rain that freezes when it comes in contact with the ground, freezing rain? This is convective. And that is concerning because that is where any error we have in this forecast gets I don't want to say exponentially greater, but it gets compounded, it multiplies if the amount of precipitation falls like a thunderstorm does. That's where that heavy moisture we showed you a moment ago comes from. That's thunder something, and it's primarily the morning on Sunday where the concerns are. And again, that will work its way east. You can get an idea, again, maybe some snowfall wrapping in the backside, all that good stuff. We'll talk about that more here in a moment. Let's come back in and let's work through this again, hour by hour, bringing it back in closer to our area. So again, this is one model at one time. All of the exact stuff will change on this. Guarantee you that. And we'll look at icefall accumulations in a minute. But the fact that I have some thunderstorm activity here, this probably includes some sleet in this late Saturday evening. And hopefully everything I've shown you reemphasizes the fact that you should expect travel disruptions as early Saturday and really pre-dawn Saturday and all the way through the weekend. Because I don't want to take my chances out someplace with this and then getting frozen in wherever we're at. Because look how cold it shows it up here. Tunica, back toward Clarksdale and Cleveland and Greenville. I've been talking to some other meteorologists. We're talking about different model biases, one of which is that sometimes some of the models end up being a little too warm because of the dense cold air. And so it's possible these numbers could actually be too high out here. Now, here's where we start getting into that thunder something. 3 o'clock in the morning in the pre-dawn hours of early Sunday, if you hear rumbles of thunder, we say a little prayer to ourselves and go back to sleep. And that prayer is, dear God, please let it be 33 or warmer. Because if it's not, this is where we start having some significant issues. And this is where the freezing line becomes so important. And I'm going to tell you right here, right now, I'm not God. And even Saturday night, I don't know that we will have a grand idea on where that freezing line is going to be exactly. But I do think in a corridor somewhere right around here is where we're most likely to see that combination of thunderstorms and just cold enough temperatures. So we're going to watch this very closely for you, but this spot here, and yes, again, this is all relative, and I just as easily could have had it a little farther east right there. It included all of Monroe County. But these are thunderstorms, some rumbles. I mean, there's not severe thunderstorms, but they produce heavier convective amounts of moisture and rainfall that then has significant icefall accumulations. As you can see here, 8 a.m. on Sunday morning. And this is something almost all of our projections are showing at this point here. We have some thunderstorms. And dear God, please let it be 35 or 34 degrees. Because if it's not, we've got some issues there that we are dealing with. I see that 19 that Bruce had there for a second. I think the reason it went that is because the model is seeing the ice falling, and it's saying that cools it. Either way, we're going to have some issues if this verifies, and most of our projections do have thunder something early Sunday morning, and it seems reasonable that some of that will fall as thunder ice. So as we look into Sunday evening and Sunday night, we do have a little more wintry precipitation kind of rotates in on the backside of this storm system here as it kind of moves on out, maybe a few flakes, and then much colder temperatures on the way as we look toward early Monday morning. That's how we potentially get kind of frozen in place. So let's look at icefall. We're going to populate this through, and we're going to let it run once, and then I'm going to come in and I'm going to stop it a bunch of times. So first thing I see here immediately is big contrast, right? I want to show you Calhoun County. Do I believe this is going to be right over Calhoun County? Not necessarily. It could be east a little farther. But I just want to show you what we're up against here. And again, we're too close in. The model's not this good, but I want to show you the contrast for a moment. Now notice how this kicks out 2.5 something, close to Bruce. And then you go, what, Vardaman-ish? And I go 0.44. That is on this projection over a 9-mile stretch, a 2-inch difference in ice. Now, is that going to happen? No, not necessarily in those exact spots, but will somebody have potentially a more than inch difference in the amount of ice and freezing rain and sleet that falls over a 9-mile stretch? Yes. That is where this forecast potentially goes very sideways on what we're showing you, is because this has a potential for high impacts in a low confidence situation because of the positioning on where that freezing line lines up and the fact that we have thunderstorms occurring when it lines up there. And so let's take this back out of this play mode here. We're going to take it to my editor, and let's do the shift. What is the shift? The shift is where I move this to what I think is the most likely probable location. And so let's move this eastward a little bit. I went west, sorry. If we move this eastward just a little bit, I want to show you here how some of these numbers get a lot higher. We'll go back a moment. And then even if that moved west, see how the Tupelo, for example, went up an inch, even though everything moved west. Because of the fact that we're talking about thunderstorms, not thunder snow, thunderstorms here, you get highly localized higher totals. And if it happens to be below freezing when that happens, you have highly localized higher impacts. So this is where comparisons to significant icing events in the past come in. And I want to say that there have been a lot of ice events over the years that we've covered and that have occurred since '94. Yes, I said the number. And many of those events have included thunder in some form or fashion where it just ends up thunder rain. So the question that I don't know if it's been asked, I haven't got a chance to check yet, is, could this all be thunder rain? Yes. Could the freezing line be in the right spot where we don't have thunder, ice, and sleet? Yes. But we have to prepare for something that could be more significant because that's not a guarantee. So when we look at this map here, the takeaway, in my opinion, should be this. If you're in the pink area here, and especially on the east side of this, that's where there's the greatest potential to see a swing in this. But that's not to neglect Grenada, showing 1.4 inches of ice, or 1.5 inches in Greenwood, or 1.8 inches in Belzona. That is to say that I think the thunderstorm rainfall amounts could be underdone, meaning in some cases, it's not impossible that if the thunderstorm happens on the cold side, that some of these numbers could be low. So, with that happy news, as we show you the 7-day forecast, this is where, again, one other factor comes in. I'm going to look at another thing here in a moment. I'm going to look at wind speeds, because finally we can understand what we were looking at with wind speeds last night. And that's the fact that we're cold from Saturday into Sunday, but again, just a lot of us barely below freezing. But then that cold air slides in. We've adjusted this up a little bit Monday morning. Gabe and I kind of going back and forth. I feel more comfortable with 12. Is the upper single digits that we had at 5 and 6 o'clock possible? Yes. I just am concerned that if there's not enough snow north, it won't be quite as cold. So that's an optimistic change in what we're showing here. 8, we're showing for that a low temperature early Tuesday morning. Again, below freezing, and pipe bursts and all those other problems are a possibility with this. So make sure you're in good shape. I see someone there mentioning have antifreeze in your radiator, not water, or your radiator will burst. That is one of those issues when you start talking about that cold. That could be. There's just so many things. That's why, again, our friends at Absolute Restoration have been giving out these faucet outside spigot covers. We've been talking about a lot the last couple of weeks here. We appreciate them for doing that. We appreciate all of our sponsors like Room to Room for sponsoring our weather center, but all those things. So let's talk about wind. Because wind is something that I could not wrap my brain around it yesterday. And now today it makes sense. Because if we're talking about these possibility that we could have thunderstorms with this, that makes so much more sense on what we were looking at. So let's look at wind gusts, because I'm sure now that's what we were looking at yesterday. So here's wind gusts using our Barron model here. Again, a behind the scenes model here at Mississippi Live Weather. You can see the wind that we have on Friday. Again, we're ahead of everything and ahead of any of those issues that we largely should have with this. As we go into, I'm going to make this go all the way through 10:30 Sunday. That should be good. So the concerns come as we go Saturday. If we have some icing and any wind, that then causes some issues. But I think part of the reason this has some spots where it's like, look at these isolated, much, much windier areas, that's seeing the fact that some of this could potentially be convective. I want to see what this looks like for early. Yeah, see, this is the concern right there for early morning on Sunday morning, where we have some localized enhancements. Look at this. It shows 47, picks that up in Houston there. Now, I don't think this is everybody, but if we happen to have some icing, already before we have something come in and you add some wind gusts. I think this is overdone on wind gusts, but it is a sign that there are compounding factors that could impact and weaken power grid situations. Because, while we talked to the folks at Tombigbee last night, in a non-windy situation, it takes about a ½ inch of radial ice around that to cause some impacts. You start adding a wind load to that, and the amount it takes to cause impact becomes less. So that's obviously one of our big concern there. I do see Chris saying the Mississippi Live weather app shows -5 for next Friday. Let's not get into the next system behind this yet, but let's just say, welcome to winter 2026. And hopefully this is its pinnacle, and hopefully it's just rainfall. But unfortunately, that's another indicator that we probably have some thunderstorms mixing in with this. So again, revisiting, I think the two most important graphics that we're going to show over and over again. And well, we'll say three. One is the current alerts. This is why ice storm warnings are in effect for all these locations that you see here. In effect for that potential where we have icing because it's cold enough and there's enough moisture. But I'm interested to see, as models come in, what we have to do here for Kosciuszko, for Ackerman, for Starkville, for West Point. Columbus, Louisville, Macon, Aliceville are in better shape. But some of these other spots, you're not out of the woods yet. Just because you're not in the ice storm warning yet doesn't mean an upgrade won't happen as confidence increases on this. Warm air hopefully will protect you, and hopefully does a lot of folks. But concerns remain there. And that's the reason why we show this graphic here. What to expect? Our peak impacts are going to be in this orange area. And the greatest uncertainty, I'll go and circle that here for a moment for you. My greatest uncertainty, I'm going to have to put that in play, is going to be for folks that live right in here. And we're hopeful on the east side of that it's all rainfall for you, and on the west side of that. But I have some significant uncertainty in this area, because if we have thunder something, where does that freezing line land? Because the big issues come based on if we end up on the wrong side of that there. So the most important thing you see, because all of this is great, is probably this graphic here. Accumulating snowfall is probably not happening. Accumulating ice and sleet probably is for many. The fact that we have thunderstorms is the X factor, the Y factor, the Z factor, the Q factor on this, because the cold air always was going to make this tricky when it came to icing. But you add in convective storm amounts of precipitation, and that's where you go from that was an ice storm with sporadic power outages to something more. So we're hoping that this does not come true. Unfortunately, all my projections have it at this point. How far north, how deeply into our area, whether or not it lines up with the cold air, that is still in flux. But travel impacts are likely for most. Expect to be where you go to sleep on Saturday night. Saturday night. But expect where you go to sleep on Friday night to be the same place you wake up on Monday morning or Tuesday morning in some spots. It will probably be for many locations in that ice storm warning the exact same location, because you probably won't be able to travel very well. And then for some, it'll be primarily rainfall on Saturday, and it might be until Sunday before you have your max icing issues. But clearly, we've got some stuff, unfortunately. We are going to take a brief break here, and then we're going to come back with our game of the week. We will answer more of your questions coming up here in 60 seconds. I do think that this will probably show the end of the broadcast, but we're coming back right after that. So hold on just a second here in the Room to Room Weather Center right after this.
When choosing a dentist for our family, Tupelo Smiles was the answer for us. They greet us with warm smiles right when we walk in the door, and they make us feel so welcome. We love Tupelo Smiles.
Even though Gabe grew up in Alabama, Mississippi has now become his home and his family. And one thing about Gabe is he keeps his family safe.
Okay, welcome back, Mississippi Live Weather at 10. I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lawpon. You heard about Gabe a second ago. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynard joining us back in our room-to-room studio there. For whatever reason, I got to figure out why this one keeps taking me back to green behind me. I had to rework one of my things on my system yesterday, and I certainly haven't worked out that one bug there. Obviously, you were live there in Calhoun County for our Game of the Week, again, presented by Casey Lott. We will talk, I think, a little bit about that in a second. I want your opinion. I have prognosticated all over this broadcast. Your honest thoughts. You do not need to agree with me on anything, but let's talk about this for a moment. I want your thoughts on what you think, and like from the heart. And it may or may not be something I agree with. But what are you thinking, Gabe?
I think a degree makes all the difference in this situation, and we've been saying that all week long. And usually with winter weather forecasting in Mississippi, 1 degree is going to be a defining factor in either a significant event or a soggy day. And I think that's one of the things where we're looking at. And even if it is a rainy forecast, temperatures do drop below freezing heading into Saturday night, heading into Sunday night, and all of that water that's sitting there on the ground potentially refreezing heading into Monday morning commutes. So I think even if you do have a rainy forecast, you still have the potential to see impacts getting into the latter part of the weekend and even into the start of next week.
There are certain phrases that I intentionally try not to use outside of the name of something. The name of one of those things being an ice storm warning, right? I don't like the phrase ice storm because I know it conjures up feelings of 94 for folks. Let's just call it like it is. Neither one of us were here in 94, so we don't have that. I've been through major ice storms before. There was one in college when I was in Kansas City where we were stuck at a friend's house for like 4 days. We just went over there like, we're meteorologists. It's an ice storm. We were stuck inside, couldn't go anywhere for days. So I have at least, and we've had icing situations. We've been stuck here before. This does have the potential to be an ice storm. I really hope it's a sleet storm more than it is, freezing rain. But this meets the criteria of an ice storm, and one of the more significant chances that we've had since I've been here at least. Have you lived through any ice situations like that when you were in Birmingham that you can remember? What were your thoughts? Anything you passed along from that?
Well, so 2014 was our kind of ice event, and it even had some snowfall mixed in there. But I remember that meteorologist heading into the event is it still working? Okay, I see my audio on video potentially coming up. But I'll keep talking about it. So 2014, meteorologist, didn't really get the forecast right. And so there wasn't a lot of preparation heading into this event. And that's where I will say big credit to 2026 because Model's doing a much better job in forecasting this well in advance. We were talking about this exact system 5 days ago. So saying that you didn't have enough time to prep, that's just a lie because it's been more than enough time to get that together. Now, were the supplies there? That's a whole other story. But nonetheless, there's been time. 2014, there was no time. And so everyone got stranded out there on the roads. And that's where I got the menu from my mom earlier today because we were talking about it. She now has potato sticks in the back of her car. What was the other thing? Some Funyuns are back there. It's like all these little snacks that are non-perishables that she can put in the back of her car that if she's heading to school on a day like, what potentially could be happening Saturday or Sunday, if that's a week during the school week, then if she got stranded at school, she'd be ready. She'd have the food. And so she was telling me that they had to actually raid the different classrooms to find food in the school because they were trapped for multiple days on end. Fortunately, it's a weekend event, and that means most folks should be home. And if you don't have plans to be home, make plans to be home because at least you'll be where you have stuff ready. Do what?
Or at least someplace homey.
Yes, and with the homies, because if you're with people you don't like, it will definitely strain you a little bit heading into Saturday, into Sunday, into Monday, into potentially Tuesday. So if you're not with...
One of the things you mentioned, like that 2014 storm, I call that, ice jam or snow jam, because that's where everybody got stuck on the roads there, in Atlanta. One of the similarities, and I will say back early, people have tried to call up 94 all week. For me, the similarity was that event because that was also what we call channeled vorticity, which is what this is, where you didn't have distinct storm systems sweeping through the typical low. We're on the north side. We wrap around snow. Everybody gets what they want. We move on to the next event. This was, again, the waves kind of moving through the overall pattern, what we call channeled vorticity. And that's the same thing you had with Snow Jam. And so that's what conjures up in my head. And that's part of the reason why I've been so on it all week long, is because that's kind of the scenario, a similar scenario to that one there. I will say my only claim to fame is I felt like I came in, I was like, this is clearly that, about seeing the ice and snow. But I also came in like the last 2 days on it, because I'd been off and I had been, forecasting. I looked at it, I'm like, oh, that's clearly what it is. And everyone was already pot committed to something else.
Talking about 2014?
Yeah, 2014. So everybody was already committed to it's going to be, I can't remember what it was. I can't even remember anymore. It's been long enough.
I was over in Birmingham. So Matt, I did not have that credible source that I needed at the time. And so I went to school, I think it was in shorts and like a sweatshirt. So like not ready at all. So 13-year-old Gabe, shame on you. But whenever we got back to the house, right before we get to my house, it's this giant hill. And I told this story a couple days ago. One of the souls that wanted to brave the hill were working their way to the top, going real slow because there was just that much traction for a four-wheel drive. Don't chance it, but they were trying to in that moment. They got to the very top, thought they made it, and they just gunned the pedal. And whenever they did that, immediately lost traction, and then the domino effect going all the way down the hill, bumper to bumper to bumper to bumper. Luckily, we weren't at the hill yet, so my dad, seeing what happened, pulled off to the side, and we walked the last quarter mile to half mile on the way home. Now, was it awful and cold with shorts? Yes. But we survived and we made it all the way home and got to spend time there. And I think we finally got my dad's truck back 3 days later. And so with that potential being comparable to 2014, you saw that there were several days that we were stuck. And we would have been stuck either way if we knew about it more or had more prep time there in Birmingham or not. But we didn't at the time. That made for a little bit worse whenever it was that commute home. But it still would have been stuck either way. And so that's why we're pushing that. We're getting everyone prepared, because with that potential still there, you can prepare. You can knock some of that brush back like we were talking about with Tom Bigby yesterday. But, ice is still going to be on the roads, and you just don't need to get out on that. It's going to be hazardous. Yep. Someone in the comments said earlier on, if you get in a wreck, you're making more people get out on those roadways to come help you, making them susceptible to a wreck. And if they wreck, then there's even more people on the roadway. So it's a domino effect. And that's why we say stay off the roads, because you're not only saving your own life, potentially, you're also saving a lot of other people's lives in the process.
Absolutely. Our meteorologist, Gabe Maynard. We're going to do sports in just a second. I want to show one more thing before we kind of go fully into the sports section of this. And that is our submissions page here at MS Live Weather. There is something here that is triggering something else. Let's see if, anyway, we'll bring it back in here, the browser. We'll come back to there. There we go. This is where at msliveweather.com/closing/submissions, where school closings can be submitted. I'll tell you right now, we had a few jokers that thought they were going to submit something. We already know that those aren't real. But administrators and people who are in charge of HR, large businesses, you can go to msliveweather.com/closing/submissions. I know, long there. We've sent out a link on Facebook about it. But you can submit your school closings, your business closings there. It will use some AI to double check to see if you're really who you say you are, and if you are, able to do that. But that's where we can put those in. We don't have any of those for tomorrow, no valid ones as we go into this weekend at this point here as well. But we do expect that to become a more impactful and frankly more important thing over the course of the next day or so. So check that out. Our school closings also on there as well. You just click closings right there on the homepage. It's also in the app. None out there right now, but we do expect more on the way. Last thing weather-wise before we go in here and talk a little bit about sports, Maggie and I will be up early tomorrow morning. She's on every weekday, 6:37, 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather this morning. We'll be up and we'll be tracking any changes to this. In particular, we'll be looking at that convective elbow of this and whether or not we're talking about icy problems, exactly how that works out and overlaps. We'll be talking about that. Probably starting at 7 a.m. I'll be up with her at 7:30 a.m. on Mississippi Live Weather today. Okay, our meteorologist Gabe Maynor was in Calhoun County earlier on today. He joins us now with the latest, and of course, we're talking sports here, Gabe. Well, if I choose the right one of these, something's up with this, Gabe. Let me make sure I get this right. Gabe, Matt, and Ma'am. There we go. Okay, sports is all you. Take it away, Mr. Maynor.
Sweet. Well, we're going to take it section by section because we had, of course, our Cheer Squad of the Week, Fan Section of the Week, a feature that I have thoroughly enjoyed during basketball season. And, of course, we have our game time highlights. We're going to start with our Fan Section of the Week to kind of get that energy going. And, Matt, feel free behind the scenes if you want to click that up. Because I don't have access to it over here. But yeah, Fan Section, as Ethan Foster told me, it was rowdy as can be, even starting a little cross-court rivalry between Okolona and Calhoun City. And only one of those schools won, but they both tried to make an appearance. And so as we pull that up, you can kind of get a visual on what exactly took place and the energy that was happening over there. Well, Matt, I'll give you a lob right here. O-Town! I'm waiting. I'm going to hold it until he joins.
Oh, yeah?
I like it.
O-Town and then what?
You know. So.
You know. I'm sorry. I was working on the switcher here trying to get everything ready. I missed that.
Well, let's rewind. Let's rewind. We can go, O-Town!
You know.
There we go. So that's our Fan Section of the Week. Yeah, that was perfect.
Perfect.
So that was Fan Section of the Week. So Okolona, whenever we talk about these head-to-head battles, Okolona already up 1-0. But then we feature our Cheer Squad of the Week, and cheerleaders couldn't make it today, but we were able to feature our Cheer Squad of the Week, and this, again, going to the Okolona Chieftain. Let's go ahead and take a listen at what they had to say.
Go, Chieftains, go! Let's go, let's go! Oh, hey, let's go! Go, Chieftains, go! Go, Chieftains, go! Go, Chieftains, go! Chieftains, go! Chieftains, go! Go, Chieftains, go! Let's go, let's go! Oh, hey, Chieftains, let's go! Go, Chieftains, go! Go, go, Chieftains, go! Go, Chieftains, go! Go, 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 go! Go, Chieftains, go! Let's go, let's go! Oh, hey, Chieftains, let's go!
O-Town showing up, showing out, but hey, that's per usual because that was from football season. They won Cheer Squad of the Week even back in the fall. So whenever there's a vote. And of course, our game of the week, Calhoun City hosting Okolona, the Chieftains in town to try and take down the #1 team in the district. Okolona Chieftains definitely had a massive opportunity to play spoiler in this undefeated district run by Calhoun City. First play, early game, missed three-pointer right here, flanking off the back rim by Miles Mays. Caden Holland missed putback dunk, stolen ball, rebound, and put back good by Jalen Jackson. A team effort right there to get the two and definitely get a good run for the start of the game. Right here, the Chieftains needing a response. Three-pointer put up by Jaden Taryn. And it's good. Of course, back and forth early in this game, but sharpshooter, got to watch out there on the wing. He's going to knock those down. So that three-pointer was, of course, made by Jaden Taryn. Well, why don't we match that real quick with a three-pointer from none other than Jalen Jackson. Double J with the J, knocking down the three and responding, saying, anything you can do, I can do better. So as we get into that next highlight, of course, the Wildcats needing to keep that run going inside basketball. Missed three-pointer off the back of the rim, but that rebound and missed by Caden Holland. Tip in by Holland. Good. Hey, keep going. Second effort, you'll succeed. Rebound good, and so is that bucket. Wildcats on a run right here. Caden Holland taking it coast to coast. Little Euro step right there with the lefty lay. Easy two right there. Finishing inside and taking that nice shot. Layup good. Wildcats continue to hold the lead in the second period, but Okolona needing a response. Jaden Taryn with another three-ball. Corner three, good. 3 points on the board for the Chieftains and trying to get back on the board as we get into that second period. Wildcats were up 30-26 at halftime, but this game far from over. As we get into the second half, Chieftains ball, Jaden Taryn missed the three, shocker honestly, but that rebound and put back by Jalen Jennings. Okolona starting to take command in that second half. As we get into the second half a little bit deeper, long two is made by Jalen Jennings. Again, got to step out there if you're going to guard that man. Of course, he takes that pull up two, and it is good. And the Wildcats the Chieftains keep it rolling. By the start of the fourth period, it was just a 4-point game with Calhoun City in the lead. Braden Jones powering in for a layup right here. You can see post work. Yeah, he's going to take you to work. Easy lay with the left. Shout out the lefties showing up for your Thursday night. And they get the response for nearly every score down to the very end. Caden Holland right here on the inside got the rebound off the three, but couldn't hold on, fighting for the basketball, and eventually got the tip in. That play shows just how much fight the Wildcats had tonight, and that effort, that could make all the difference whenever we talk about that final play. Okolona actually took the lead late in the fourth period, but tensions were high, and some careless fouls, including a technical foul on the Chieftains, proved costly, and at the end actually gave the Wildcats multiple free throw attempts, which let the home team get a cushion, and at that point, it was too late to respond for the Chieftains. The Wildcats win a hard-fought battle, 60-55 over the Chieftains, in what was an instant classic 1A game. Calhoun City stays undefeated in district play, and Okolona misses a massive upset opportunity. What a game, though. Only 5 points and fouls proving to be the difference. I mean, that's pretty much all you can ask for. I know we had a blowout last week, so it feels good to have a close game this week to kind of be a nail-biter near the end. Ethan describing it as an energetic atmosphere. And keep in mind, these are two 1A teams. Having that much energy for 1A teams shows that these fan bases are no joke, and they are ready to support their boys.
Man, we're so excited about that. You know, we're so glad to, again, be pairing up with the folks at the Langston Lot and Casey Lot for, again, sponsoring our Mississippi Live Game of the Week. And y'all had a great one out there. I know you wish you could have stayed for the whole game. Our Ethan Foster was out there the whole game. We had to bring it back for weather coverage. But
well, and he told me that he wanted to reiterate what he said at 6. When you mess with a Wildcat, you get scratched.
Apparently, that's the way it worked this time around. Our meteorologist Gabe Maynard there. Appreciate that. For folks that are joining us late, let's give you the quick overview on the weather situation over the next couple of days. Again, I'm Chief Meteorologist Matt Lopon. You're watching Mississippi Live Weather. Ice storm warnings have been expanded. More locations are more likely to see accumulating ice fall based on what we're looking at. And some of that could come from thunderstorms because, believe it or not, thunderstorms are possible. But what falls from that is the question that we have answered. We will go over that again here in a second. And you just saw the game of the week. The rainfall is the story because ultimately, if you melt everything that comes down, we have some pretty hefty amounts. Amounts in some cases in excess of 4 inches possible. And the only way you get moisture that significant is if you have thunderstorms. And then the question is, do those thunderstorms, including the potential for icing? And I do think it could, especially very near the east edge of our area of peak impacts that we depict here. On the eastern side of this is where we're going to be very close to the freezing point. It's high impact if we're on the wrong side. It is, thank God it was just rainfall if we're on the right side. And in this case, the left side's the wrong side. The right side is the right side because it's closer to warm. Not everybody in this pink will see icing. In fact, for a good chunk of the event, it might be just rainfall down here. Louisville, Starkville, West Point, back up there toward around Aberdeen. But I think Monroe County or Lee County or Chickasaw County going to be right on the edge there between folks that have a really bad couple of days and folks that got really, really lucky. Hopefully you're on the correct side of that. Hopefully I am as well. Unfortunately, there will be some folks that are not on the right side. And that's where these ice storm warnings come in. This all picks up tomorrow evening, tomorrow night. Your Friday is completely good to go. But this is where travel disruptions are likely. And again, this starts Friday evening. And when we look at our peak threats and concerns, they continue to revolve around my concern, the thunderstorm potential here because of the, how do I put it? The uncertainty it interjects into the forecast. I think some thunderstorms are going to be possible, and thunderstorms always have isolated, heavier rainfall amounts. If that happens to be frozen, we've got real problems on our hands. I am not to level 5 confidence yet on accumulating ice and sleet. There is still hope for warm air coming in and pushing the sleet and freezing rain farther northward. That is what we are praying for. That is what we are hoping for. That is where things go in the right direction for us. Certainly, that is what we hope happens. Snowfall will not happen for most of us. Maybe some flakes if you're really, really lucky. And ultimately, sub-freezing temperatures keep what falls around for a number of days. Again, join our conversation here. You can see that conversation ongoing there. Someone saying bipolar Mississippi. Yeah, anytime you have thunderstorms and ice, that's clearly not what we want. Also see someone there mentioning the fact that you want to, cover your cars with a tarp. I would say one thing I learned is cover your windshield with the tarp potentially, because if you put the tarp down and then you put, you want to keep your windshield wipers up so it doesn't freeze to it. You can put the tarp in each of the doors. That helps out. Now, I will warn you, we had a snow situation a couple years back. I did that up at the TV station, left the van there, and some of the water did get in on the inside as I took it off. So it's possible for water to kind of get in as you're taking it off. You got to be careful on cleaning it off as you're trying to get it out. But that keeps you from having to scrape lots of ice off a windshield, something I learned from my dad in Kansas growing up. There are a lot of other tips and tricks, but the important thing to note is that we will have travel disruptions in all likelihood for a lot of spots from this, and we will probably have some power failures. So as we talked about last night, we have a post on Facebook, be careful with generators. Not only can they backfeed the line, which then could kill people trying to put the power back on, but the carbon monoxide from that is something that would have flu-like symptoms. So we talked to the folks at IMPC about this at 6 o'clock. If you happen to have a generator or have gas heat, and at some point during this process, you start to feel flu-like symptoms, but you don't actually have a fever, you could be dealing with a carbon monoxide leak. And carbon monoxide is not the stuff that causes climate change, not the stuff that trees breathe in, it's CO. And it's an odorless, colorless gas that can kill you because if it builds up, there's less oxygen in every breath you take, and that makes it to where you become oxygen starved and suffocate and die. And so, because of that, number one, it'd be good to have carbon monoxide detectors in your home already. But if you have flu-like symptoms, the reason for that could be carbon monoxide poisoning. So make sure that any generators are far enough away from the house that they don't backfeed in that carbon monoxide, and make sure that they're properly installed if they're hooked into the house so that they don't backfeed the lines when the folks come to try to turn them back on, because even a small generator could kill somebody. So let's keep that in mind. Let's be safe and let's try to get through this. You never want those heaters on the inside. I see Gabe raising his hand because I think we have a graphic that shows all of this here. So I'm going to bring him back in to discuss that as well. I'm sure we have those graphics, don't we?
Yes. The reason why I was waving my hand was really because there were a few comments that I wanted to address to kind of answer before they get flooded in the rest of the comments. One of those being, is Monroe County good, or are they going to be stuck for a couple of days? I believe that was Allie there asking about Monroe County. Yes, it's safe to say that you're going to be home for a little bit. I know you're confused a little bit about this forecast. That line of uncertainty is still there, but the fact that we're going to see sub-freezing temperatures and a whole lot of moisture means that it's going to refreeze in those overnight hours and potentially stick around into the start of the week as well due to those temperatures being sub-freezing. And so if it falls as rain, or if it falls as sleet, if it falls as freezing rain, you're still looking at those impacts still being in the forecast. Mm-hmm. And one other question that I forgot who it was, but they were asking, with travel impacts being in the forecast, and Matt and I talked about it a little bit yesterday, he's in the remote room-to-room weather center, but we actually made a makeshift studio at my house. So if you saw me post a picture of the nursery is now a multi-purpose room, and it is going to be the studio. So sorry, crews, I have to borrow your room for a couple of days. And we're going to be doing coverage there. So we're still team coverage going to be in full effect. Caleb hopefully getting some live shots out in the field as we head into this event, staying safe, but letting us know some of those impacts out there.
The reason you're home and I'm home and Maggie's home is because we have to lead by example. And we're not going to do a whole lot of out there driving on the road sort of stuff in this, because that doesn't necessarily help. There will be a time where perhaps as things start to thaw that we try to do some judgment on that. But ultimately, we got to lead by example on this. And that means plan to be wherever you're at Friday night into the first part of next week. I've seen some funny videos going on out there about that, but that's one of those preparations that we need to consider. I'm going to pop back up that chat here again, kind of look through some of those. Someone on there said Mississippi is not even a good state. I would debate you on that. I think Mississippi is one of the best states, and I'm not from here. But the people from here make this state, and they're good people, and they help each other out. And so this is an opportunity over the next few days to show that by being courteous and kind, and if necessary, sharing with others what we have. Hopefully that doesn't become something that we have to do, but I know Mississippians are spectacular at that. They've proven that to me over the years. And who was that over there? Luke Foster, I can tell you this. If you were here, they'd prove it to you as well. Have you spoken to anyone at the natural gas company in Matahatchee? I have not talked to natural gas folks, but I can tell you that that they do lots of winterization. They do lots of preparation as well. But some of the natural gas pumps, I can tell you up in Tennessee, powered by electricity and TVA, if you have extended power outages, there are some contingencies there that we'll need, I think, to learn more about. Hopefully we can talk to some folks with that coming up tomorrow. Husband has to drive from Hamilton to Fulton for work. Unfortunately, it's mandatory. How worried should I be? I mean, you should always be praying. But I would say that there's probably going to be some issues there at some point over the course of the weekend. And hopefully things go well for him there. Same thing all throughout Itawamba County and other folks. Power outages for more than 2 weeks. Deanna says someone's posting about power outages for more than 2 weeks. Listen, significant power outages are possible. I would say it's too early to say something like that. But if you're talking incredible ice loads because of thunderstorms producing significant icing in excess of an inch, then yes, that does become a possibility. But power crews have been proactive in many areas. We talked to Tom Bigby last night about this. Their CEO, Scott Hendricks, talking about how they've been proactive in the right-of-ways, clearing those tree limbs. No one likes seeing a green tree cut, but the reason it happens is so we don't have power outages for 2 weeks in this situation. So hopefully, as much preparation's been done, those folks will do the best they can. How long will the power be out for? It just depends if you're on the close end of the line to where the outage is, or the sheer number of small outages that they have. There's going to be some questions there. What time do I suggest that people get off of the road tomorrow? I would say by this time tomorrow, probably a good idea to be at home. But I think during the daylight period, we're largely going to be in pretty good shape. I'm bringing our meteorologist, Gabe Maynor, back in here for more. Gabe?
So a few notes. So first, I've seen a lot of folks saying animals, pets. We need to bring those in. For sure. There's usually, the best way to remember the checklist is the P's. And what I mean by that, we're talking about pipes. Yes, you'll probably need to drip those heading into start of next week and even into the latter part of the weekend. We're talking about people, checking on them in this event, especially plants, but plants are far gone at this point. And then pets. And pets, a lot of those live outdoors. We need to bring them in because if we're talking about a soggy forecast, well, those pets get wet. And then in the cold air, it can cause them to freeze and their body temperature to drop, which is extremely dangerous to their health. And unfortunately, it could result in some deaths. I told Annalise that she drives back from Boonville after school. And I said, if you see an animal on the side of the road that's just a stray, pick it up and bring it back to the house, and we'll keep them homed for at least a couple days, foster them just to let them make it through this dangerous system. Because I mean, that's really a risk where a lot of people are overlooking, is pets need to be included in that as well.
Absolutely, especially in the extreme cold there. I did see in the chat, someone was asking, okay, if we're remote, how are we going to keep broadcasting? So there's some infrastructure we've built in here. Our remote, our kind of the plant and the place where our broadcast signal goes out is up in Tennessee. It's on a generator up there, and it's on broadband providers, hub there as well. I have a redundant system here at the house. So if we have to broadcast separately, we can do that. I also can broadcast right from my computer here at home and have most of what I need here. I won't necessarily have every bit of the best end equipment, but I do have a backup internet. I'm on FirstNet because, again, we're a type of first responder on the front lines of this as well. We have backup power here at the house. I drive an electric F-150, and that thing is charged to 100%, so I can run a cord in here. You cannot think of every possible outcome, but I can tell you we've probably done a pretty good job of trying to put some redundancy in here. I feel fairly confident we're going to be in okay shape with this. Gabe has some of those redundancies, not all, but Gabe, certainly I think that we have some layers in to hopefully keep broadcasting as long as we can.
For sure. I mean, we've done all the preparations here starting, I think, Monday is when we discussed it, and we got that plan in place. But one of the things that I wanted to talk about was I was able to go to a career day today over at East Union, got to see a ton of great people. If we want to run those pictures, we can, Matt. It's under one of the video tabs, and we can kind of get that as some B-roll in the background. But, you know, got to go out there and talk to several folks. And the big question whenever we were talking about it was, Gabe, is it going to snow? What are we going to see? Lovely folks that I got to talk to, a few potential meteorologists in the future, but yes, that was the golden question was, is it going to snow? And the answer every time was no. And then it was it going to be anything that's going to keep us out of school? And I said yes, just because of that icing potential. And even in Union County, I mean, we're talking about an area that's pretty well into that area where we could see some of that ice accumulation. But yes, a great crowd out there. Really wanted to give a shout out to them because it was such a fun time, and I hope they had as much fun as I did. But one of the big things while we were at that career day was there were a lot of power cooperatives out there. One of those being the folks at New Albany. They were talking to me, asking me, you know, what can we expect? And I told them the potentials with the ice. And I said, you know, would that keep you guys out of commission for a bit? And they told me, yes, they can't travel until those roads are good enough to drive on. And so one of the big notes with that forecast is power crews, they can fix power once they're able to get to those locations to fix that power. And so they require that travel as well, just like we do. And so those travel impacts and power outages go hand in hand in order for both of those to be fixed. But Matt, a great time out there. Thank you, East Union. Thank you to my mom-in-law for having me out there for the school visit and being a part of their career day. And so many young aspiring meteorologists that were so fascinated by this forecast. And it's amazing how much they're able to know, and they're just in like 6th, 7th, 8th grade. So really cool to be a part of.
So much smarter than us. I think that's the main thing I learned from kids is just how much smarter they are than I realized. We bring the chat back up. I do want to give you some new information I had from a moment ago. Talking back and forth with our streaming provider, the people that basically host our server. They have moved the place where we're hosting it, digitally moved it to a server base in Nashville. So I think that again should hopefully isolate us a little bit more and make it to where we're a little bit outside of the worst of some of this icing, and hopefully that means again another layer of redundancy, hoping to help things out here. But if the power grid goes out, will we be able to watch you? That's a great question, Jacob. And so here's a thing that you might not realize. If you can keep power to your Wi-Fi hub, your Wi-Fi router, and if you have fiber at your what they call the ONT, but basically your modem, even if the power goes out and the power cooperative is your internet provider, you can still be able to watch on that. And as crazy as it is, the internet still comes in on fiber because a lot of the places where that goes on the lines around are backed up. Now, here's the thing. It's possible that a tree limb or something else could fall in a line between you and wherever the distribution point is, and then that would knock that out as well. So then you have to rely on internet like this. The problem is that there are concerns that power goes out, that then the cell phone service gets impacted, so if you lose cell phone service, if you lose power and all that goes, you might not be able to watch us on your end. We should still be broadcasting at that point, but we want to make sure those devices are charged and used for emergency reasons. You get in the situation where your power gets knocked out in this, you're probably not playing around on your phone a whole lot. You're probably rationing that battery power because it could be a while. Now, there's some other options that you can do. Obviously, you could conceivably get a power inverter for your car. I don't know that there's a whole lot of those still around because I bet a lot of those sold out, and charge it up there. But of course, that's a very inefficient way to charge it, and be careful about carbon monoxide issues and making sure that the tailpipe is, able to, get all that out. But not the most efficient way to charge your phone. But certainly the power on your phone is going to be one of the limiting factors on that, and hopefully the cell phone service holds up. We'll see. But one of the big things on that I'm mentioning is make sure that you have, if you can get power to your router and power to your modem, at least with fiber, even if you lose power, you still have internet. It's one of the things I've learned, which I think is pretty awesome. And I've seen it happen in real time. So let's see here. Stay inside 94 survivors. We're at the age where we break things when we fall. That's true. That is one of the concerns we talked to the folks at IMPC about. So we don't want to have falls and stuff. we've given you a whole week pretty much to plan to cozy up to be inside, and hopefully it's cozy up with rain as opposed to cozy up with something else. Gabe, back in the studio, what you thinking?
So a lot of folks asking about some potentially overlooked areas, Corinth being mentioned and also Winston County. And so one of the things, Matt, I'm going to ask you behind the scenes, if you want to pull up that graphic about talking about the peak impacts. Of course, we've seen this list behind the screen, but we do have that area basically mapping out all across North Mississippi for any of those areas that are of the utmost concern or have the highest potential. And so when we look at that what to expect area, the thing that stands out is if you look at the southwest to northeast orientation of the peak impacts, Corinth, of course, falling within that realm. Still some questions down around Louisville in Winston County of where that freezing line takes place. But I will say, whether it's rain, whether it's sleet, whether it's freezing rain, we are going to see impacts in regards to that moisture being on the ground and potentially refreezing into those overnight hours. So this line that Matt's drawing right there, that's something to pay attention to of where we're expecting some of those impacts to take place. But back behind the line, colder air is in place, and that's where it's supporting some of that moisture to be more on the frozen side. And so that does include parts of Corinth, so I don't want to overlook anybody, but take this map, know where your county is, know where your locations are, and you can kind of see that those peak impacts extend from Clarksdale all the way to Houston, all the way north into Corinth and Marshall County, and all the way south into Greenville, Belzona, and Kosciuszko. But answers will come heading into Friday, of course, with high-resolution models, but Friday night into Saturday morning in that nowcasting, we can see where that freezing line sets up and have a better assessment of, okay, hey, folks, this is where it's happening. So we have a better idea of it being southeast of the area, much better, northwest of that area, a little bit worse. So we'll have that set up. And of course, this graphic.
Over the next 24 hours, we're also looking at, do models consistently start putting it in the same spot?
Yes.
They have started to congeal sort of where we're at. We're hoping it moves all north. Let's be clear about that. I saw someone ask a minute ago, Choctaw County or East Union, or some of these spots there. Are we more confident about rain than ice? I am fairly confident that by Sunday morning we are going to probably have some thunderstorms mix in. If that happens, those will produce rain that either freezes or doesn't freeze. And that comes down to where that freezing line is. So I feel very confident that we're going to have some form of icing for a lot of folks, if not all folks, in this peak impact area. I'm less confident over here in the pink, but I think it's still possible, even in Columbus or Macon, that you could still maybe have some icing with this, but more likely than not, rainfall for you. And there's going to be a cutoff somewhere in this wiggle zone here where it is primarily rainfall east and just a mess of a mix a little bit back to the west. So I still think most of us, if not many of us, the most of us, are going to see some amount of icing, and for some, it will be significant. Let's see some other questions we have here. Snow in Choctaw, not going to happen. Marcellus has been with us all week long. You can keep saying it. It's not going to happen, unfortunately. Does peak impacts mean the worst of it? I would say that's where we mean that in this zone is where we're most likely to have the greatest number of power disruptions and the greatest amount of travel disruptions. So travel disruptions possible, all the spots where we see the pink, and in particular, going with the official map from the folks there at the National Weather Service, it would be this here, all the folks in the ice storm warning in the purple. These are the spots, again, where, again, the peak travel impacts are possible for everyone. Appreciate, love you too, Mason there, and everyone for supporting us here on Mississippi Live Weather. Greenwood, we have not talked enough about the Delta, and I apologize for that. One of the things I'm getting used to is we have expanded the area somewhat, get my brain to think outside of the box that I've had it in for years and years. So Greenwood, one thing, Greenville and Greenwood back here, I'm hopeful that you are far enough north and west to miss out on the thunder portion of this, right? If you miss out on the storms, then the, whoa, that was more than we expected kind of ice is less of an issue. I think you're probably cold enough for most of this event that it is very reasonable that Greenwood sees, God, I hate saying these numbers, an inch of ice or more. How much more? That all comes down if you see the thunderstorms. But accumulating icefall in Greenwood, Belzona, Grenada, Water Valley, Oxford, New Albany, Boonville, Bruce, all very much possible in here We hope for maybe some more dry air. We hope for maybe some more warm air to completely melt it all out. But in this purple zone here in our ice storm warning, there are going to be some issues. So I haven't mentioned you much in Oxford or Coffeyville. Haven't mentioned you much in Charleston or Senatobia. Or maybe you're all just Maggie McCauley up there. But in these purple counties, Tippah County up there in Ripley, or Benton County, Ashland, or Corinth, Iuka, all in a zone where accumulating ice in excess of a half an inch, maybe well in excess of a half an inch is possible. Now, not all of that ice is going to be the kind that brings down power lines. The thing we've shown a lot, we haven't shown today at all, and if you stuck with us long enough, it's time for us to show it all, is the radial icing. I want to see what our model here, our strike model, shows on the radial icing on this. Again, it is not overly impressed by this, and I'll be honest, I want to check something. I just want to make sure there's not some kind of model editing going on there. Nope, that's all the correct stuff. So I have never used this before, so I can't tell you its potential error on this. But one of the things that's important, as this shows, is that this doesn't have as much on the power lines. That's what radial icing would be, on the power lines, on the limbs, and that would say that some of this hedges more toward sleet, and really, hopefully that is the case, that happens. If we look at the horizontal icing, and again, these are things, these are details and information you'll see only here on Mississippi Live. Oh, I need to check something on horizontal, on radial first. This is the 15K. It's not going to have that. I need to change models. Now, let's change the place model group. I think this is worth our time to get this right. So give me a moment. Come in here, make sure it's locked to the correct model at the correct time with the correct parameter. There we go. And okay. Okay. And notice how that does have greater amounts, because this is probably more likely to pick up on some of the thunder something. It does not have a ton over our area on the radial icing, but out here in Greenville, it shows almost half an inch. And that is in the zone here where we are talking more about power disruptions. I also think this is too far west. I think that it's reasonable this could come east in Esther County or so. And I also think that this does not properly represent the thunder, whatever's occurring. Thunder, sleet, thunder freezing rain, just thunderstorms. So I think there could be isolated amounts that are a little greater than this. I don't frankly know enough about this product to truly judge it yet. So we'll have to come back and obviously after the fact, find out how much we believe radial icing, right? So we're both learning about that. We're all learning about that all at the same time. I'm going to do the same thing here on our horizontal icing, because I think that will once again also enhance this somewhat. So again, the horizontal icing on the highest resolution that we can show you. And then we're going to make sure that the place names, the places show the correct amounts as well. Man, if you're still with us at 11:18, thank you so much for supporting us here in Mississippi Live Weather and supporting Carl Hogan Toyota. All those folks, I need to say this. I appreciate Room to Room for sponsoring our weather center here, and all of the sponsors that we do have that have sponsored different things. Support those people that support us here on Mississippi Live Weather. It's the only way this sticks around. Because if sponsored, there's a million different places sponsors can put their money. If you tell them, hey, support Mississippi Live because what they do is important, then they'll keep doing it. They'll listen to you. But if you don't, everything we have costs money. By the way, every single viewing right now increases my bill with my data provider. In saying that, we have the ability to cover it for now because we have sponsors, but continue to support them because as we bring in more people, it costs more money. It's just like when you use more cell phone data, it costs you more money, same thing here. Horizontal icing, as you can see, most of this meaning flat surfaces. This is what falls, hits roadways, hits decks, hits elevated surfaces, and freezes on contact. As you can see, more than an inch on a fairly widespread scale out in the Delta. And so my negligence to a certain extent here is we have not talked enough about the Delta and the icing potential there. Some of this ice storm could be the most reliable portion of this ice storm is most significant in the Delta. Greenville, Greenwood, Belzona, Charleston, Cleveland, a lot of other folks, Tunica, Clarksdale. You are in the zone where you will see significant icing from this. And hopefully it's not to the extent where we have more power outages. Okay, so Kelly's saying it's going to change. A lot more counties have ice storm warnings today that went on. We expect potentially more. Watch the map. Watch for updates. The Mississippi Live Weather app, great with those updates. They are fast, and we appreciate that. Thunder and ice, that's wild activity. They're hoping that's not the case. Now, we do have some partnerships with a few radio stations around the region. If we get into a situation where there are massive power outages, we will work with those radio partners, and we will probably find additional radio partners to work with so that we can get you that information. So if you do have a battery-powered radio, I know cars obviously work with that as well, we can get information out that way and try to work through it as well. But, support your local media. Certainly it helps out. Let's see here. Should I go home to Fulton or stay in Starkville since I go to school at MSU? And since you're iffy about Starkville. So I would stay in Starkville if you have a place in Starkville. I think I would definitely, I think your chances of having a major ice storm are a little bit less there in Starkville than they are in Fulton. And, getting back could be a little tricky there. Favorite color is blue. There's a lot of blue on here. You make a TV station, you can make whatever color you want. See y'all tomorrow morning. Good that. What time is the worst it will hit Iuka? Listen, it's the duration that's the issue for Iuka. We're hopeful that you stay warmer on Saturday, certainly into Saturday night and Sunday morning. Major concerns there for most locations. That's when we could pick up some of the most of it, is that Saturday night and the Sunday morning. In New Albany, you're in it. So is Corinth. So are most locations here. I'm bringing Gabe, and then we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here because Mrs. Lawpon's birthday is tomorrow. And I cannot start her birthday by being on the air or else I'll get in trouble. So y'all want to go on her Facebook page, wish her a happy birthday. I'm sure she'd appreciate that.
Can we sing happy
Gabe,
birthday? Or
we can, but not today because it's not
do it
birthday
tomorrow?
yet.
You can do it.
We'll
Hey, surprise Maggie bright and early with the morning show and tell her that she has to sing Mrs. Lobhon happy birthday.
But she would willingly do it and send a text. And
she'd bring Maya in there
everything.
too. Maya would sing too.
Oh my God, she's so cute. She was on this morning. She's so cute. Okay, final weather thoughts.
Get prepared. I mean, it's right around the corner. Been talking about it all week long. And if you have not made the preparations, then, now is the literal last minute. We talk about, Christmas Eve being the last moment to buy Christmas gifts. This is your Christmas Eve of this event. And, it very well might leave a few of us saying, wow, we got lucky. And I really hope that's the case. But the potential is there for this to be a very impactful, a very dangerous, and a potentially life-threatening system because of that cold that's in place and because of all of the slick roadways and power outages. So get prepared now. Generators definitely need to be in full force. Picked up mine today, so going to make sure that's up and running tomorrow. Get the gas that you need to potentially last through the weekend and even into early next week. And as we get into that extended forecast, blankets, layers, family, friends, candles, all of it going to be needed as we get into that forecast. So, Matt, now's the time.
But just be smart and safe on that.
Yes.
You mentioned candles. At the TV station, in this scenario, we always do house fire stories. And I really hope that we get to Wednesday of next week and nobody died in a house fire. Nobody died from carbon monoxide poisoning. Be very careful with candles and pets and kids. You cannot use your stove to heat your house. Fires happen from that every year. Don't use your stove. Don't use a gas stove to do that, especially because then you have more carbon monoxide potential in that as well. It's easy to sit back in a place where I do have some battery backup and say, don't do that. So I understand I'm coming from a high and mighty place to a certain extent, but let's just make smart choices. Let's get the next Tuesday. Heated blankets, an efficient way to do this as well. If you have a heated blanket, you can plug that in. But of course, we don't want to leave those things by themselves and go away, because again, that's one, space heaters in particular, how we always have fires every season. And hopefully that's not the case this time. Yeah.
And the thing with cold, like this type of forecast, it makes me more concerned for we often talk about severe weather in Mississippi, and I don't want to compare events because, of course, there are those specific events that were definitely took a lot of lives, made a lot of impacts, and so I don't want to overlook that. But when we're talking about extreme cold like this, and we're talking about, look at how many areas are under that ice storm warning. This is something I have not seen in quite some time, seeing this many warnings across North Mississippi or across a specific area here in the South. When this is in place, a large portion of this area will see a type of forecast that has not been seen in quite some time. And that is life-threatening. And so this can be more impactful than potentially some of those severe weather events that we've had in the past. And so we know the precautions that we take with that. And oftentimes we look at a winter weather forecast and think, well, that's going to be a good time. I did tell someone today that freezing rain, optimal for sledding. So if you want one positive out of this, there's your positive, but not exactly something to get on the roads for. And so just, yes, reiterating what we've been saying all night and all week long, please stay safe, please stay prepared, and all that is up to you. And you are responsible for your life and taking care of it, and we hope that you do exactly that as we get into this weekend forecast. But and I did see someone earlier ask what my favorite color was. Like Matt, it's blue. So there's your positive tonight.
I had my favorite inappropriate comment of the evening, and I feel like I had a pretty good comeback. And because this is my show, I can show it. Who was there? What did they say? Somebody over there said, Andrew said I couldn't predict the, bowel movement. And as I shot back, depends on what I've had for dinner. Maybe I can. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us here on Mississippi Live Weather. We'll try to keep it clean, try to keep it honest, prepare. Don't want folks to be scared, but it's 11:27. We got to shut this thing down. So let's go ahead and pray at the end of the night on that note there. I think we could all use a little prayer, including even if it's just for bowel movements. Dear God, man, I believe in targeted prayer. And so I'm asking these folks to pray along with me this evening that warm air wins. Man, it would be really bad to have egg on my face, and with every other meteorologist that, clearly the Weather Service here has ice storm warnings in place, but I would be okay with that if that meant nobody got hurt and nobody got killed. So God, whatever it is that will make that happen, in particular, warmer air at the surface that eats up this and keeps the cold air out of phase with the thunderstorms, God, just let that happen. I know your will be done, so protect these people, prepare them, guide them. And whatever happens, if they're stuck at home, let it be an opportunity for renewal and rejoicing with their family and friends, and an opportunity to slow things down if they end up with power outages, and just enjoy one another. Keep them safe, keep them warm, and give them a heart to take care of others. Help my wife to have a happy birthday, and help me to be a halfway decent husband on her birthday, in spite of all this. Pray for this in Jesus' name. Thank you for the many ways you've blessed us and these people. Amen. Okay, if you would like to like and subscribe and all the different things here, best way to do that is, again, in the app. Again, not a lot of comments you can do in the app, so that means you also miss out on all those, if that's a benefit or not there. Free and available for all those different devices, iOS as well as Android. We're on Roku, Apple TV. We do not have Fire Stick. One day it'll happen. Today's not that day, unfortunately. But on Fire Stick, you go to YouTube, you search for Mississippi Live Weather. We're right there. We're still live on that TV in that case. Next live broadcast is going to be with our meteorologist, Maggie McCauley. That's going to be starting at early morning hours tomorrow. She'll be on at 6:30 a.m. I'll probably pop on late in 7 o'clock as I have the last couple of days. 7:30 a.m. She'll be live as well. Expecting, again, travel disruptions, not for the daytime tomorrow. Those start tomorrow night. Maggie will be talking about that. I'll be right alongside her. Our live broadcasts 5, 6, and 10 in the evenings. Like, subscribe, and support those people that support Mississippi Live Weather. It's the only way we can keep doing this. We'll see you tomorrow.